It's time for a new episode of Canopy's Practice Success podcast. Today we'll hear from Stephen Smith, CPA and founder of Controllership Solutions in New Jersey. Stephen discusses how he has created a niche and persona as the cooking coach, the power of partnering with complementary service providers, leveraging technology, and how he finds balance between building his practice and making time for his passions, including his family. Listen for some new insights that will help your firm thrive. Welcome to an episode of Canopy Practice Success. I'm Casey Brothers, and I'm here with Stephen Smith. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can
Casey.
you give us a quick introduction of yourself, professionally, maybe throw in some personal nuggets as well?
Sure. My name is Stephen Smith. In my firm, Controllership Solutions, we are out of Morristown.
Say that 5 times fast, right?
Controllership
Solutions.
LLC. We are out of Morristown, New Jersey, northern New Jersey, just west of New York City, and we're in the suburbs, 2 kids, family, and soccer Sundays.
Oh, fun! It's a good time in life.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about See, I struggle with that. Maybe it's my retainers. Controllership Solutions and what you do.
So we are a boutique kind of firm. It's myself and 1 employee. And we provide training, troubleshooting, setup, and ongoing controllership services to both businesses as well as individuals needing a little bit of accountability with their personal finances and household.
Okay, and you've specifically helped individuals who are, when we're talking about individual clients and not business clients, who are already managing their finances well and typically have come to you with just technology issues, but you've found that even though they might be coming, it's funny, we all think we know what we want. Mm-hmm. I've seen even in the context of AI, people say like, I'm not out of a job because then someone would have to actually accurately describe to AI what they want. And we all have a hard time doing that, don't we? So people probably come to you thinking that they know what they want. And then as you're evaluating things, tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, just like with businesses, individuals have the same problems. They need to know what their money is doing, where it is, how it's doing, how it's being deployed. And as businesses grow, obviously it becomes more of a complex chore. Same thing with individuals and families. Yes. As they become more successful, they have the same problems. Multiple homes, multiple accounts, multiple investments. And just like with businesses, the question of, am I making money? And why can't I make payroll? And is this working? Who are my most profitable clients? That becomes a similar issue, just in a slightly different context with individual households. Oh, I have different houses. What am I spending? Do I have enough money for college? Do I have enough money for retirement? Are we living beyond our means? We feel like we're making a lot, but are we spending too much? Those types of questions. And it all comes down to data. So.
Yes. Data is king, right? Data checks our emotions at the door. It's hard to argue with. So what's some of the data that you love reviewing with your clients?
So in the beginning, it's just what I call writing the ship. We just got to get a balance sheet in place. So what exactly does a balance sheet look like? Whether, again, if it's a business or an individual household. When it comes to businesses, it's accounts receivables and liabilities or their customer deposits, fixed assets. With an individual, it's the same thing. Might be stocks, bank accounts, credit cards, second homes, third homes, collector cars, who knows what. Yes. So let's get everything on one page. Then, of course, after the balance sheet comes the P&L. So what is the, what are the how does the cash move in and out? Yeah. Both for, again, in a business, customers' expenses, and an individual, it might be earned income, it might be passive income, it might be rental income, and is that enough to offset expenses?
Yeah. So data is not a strength of everyone. I think it comes really naturally to accountants because accountants work so well with numbers. How do you help your clients understand the data that you're dealing with?
Yeah, well, they usually have a question. They understand that there's a problem. They don't necessarily know what the solution is.
Yeah.
Frequently, the relationship starts with just solving technical issues. So I have to build trust, knowing they need to know that I know how to work the software. The QuickBooks, the e-commerce, the integrations, Quicken, they need to know how everything works. So once they see that I am an authority when it comes to reconciling, getting a balance sheet, understanding how these things all kind of fit together, then they start to have some trust. And then it's like we get to the real nature of the issue, the real nature of the problem. It's, yes, I don't know why we're not doing more why I'm having difficulty making payroll, or why is there never as much money in our bank account to pay the credit card bill. And so once we start to say, okay, well, if that's the problem, let's look at the actual numbers. So let's see where it's actually going. Yeah. And then from there, that opens up a whole nother realm of, trusted advisory, and I can do some additional counseling. It's like, is this necessary? What is this? Why is this? What's going on here?
Yeah. So data is just something I'm personally passionate about too, because there's so many instances in where if you have, and you're tracking data appropriately, what's hard about data, right, is that it's only as good as you make it.
Right.
We were talking earlier and you were saying garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
And if you're putting in bad data, you're not going to be getting the data you need to, that data is not going to reflect reality.
Sure.
So how do you go about making sure that your processes to capture data are capturing it correctly? So
if I'm really doing my job right, the process is easy. It's selling them on the process. That's the hard part. They need to kind of have their own aha moment. The client needs to really want it. Yeah. So the challenge is getting them to want it. So they came to me with a technical question. Okay, they kind of want it. So then I give them the technical answer, but then it's like, this is going to happen again if you don't learn something, if you don't learn the process, and if you don't want the process, if you don't want to have constant improvement, constant ongoing, analysis of this. So how do I try to get that buy-in from them by getting them to have their own aha moment? And I'll use expressions. Yeah, I'll say, this is garbage in, garbage out. And you got to work for it. The results are not given. About behavior change here, and it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah, it does not happen overnight. So they need to actually understand that and get that. And so I'll use expressions that they've heard all their life, such as garbage in, garbage out. So they can say, oh, okay, yes, I get it. And then when it goes wrong again, they're holding themselves a little more accountable to it. So we'll say, okay, here's the process. This is what needs to be done. And is it hard? No. But, with risk reward is another one. So everyone understands that there's a risk and a reward, and everyone understands that there's a relationship between the two. Yeah. So I try to demonstrate and show them where that risk reward is and where that paradigm is. Now, the other element of this, of course, is there's a point of diminishing returns. So they can't go too far with it. So where do we find that sweet spot? Where do we find that actual, okay, this is something that we can do? And then I use another expression. I use the 80-20 rule, something they've also heard from their, all their life. 80% of your problems can be solved with a little bit of effort, with 20% effort. So let's just course correct a little bit here. Yeah. And then great, we'll fix that. And then of course that moves everything up. And then hopefully it gives them a little bit of a taste of, oh, this is really nice. This is great. Well, great. What's the next big thing that we can do with 20% effort that will give us 80% success, 80% results? Yeah.
So talk to me too about how you found all of this within your firm, how you found that this was a need to help people identify how to find these points of leverage. And
at the conferences and just podcasts and ongoing, books that I've read, I absorb that, because it's very interesting to me. And but it's very difficult to give, a client a book and say, oh, if you read this, and they don't really want that.
Yeah.
But so I needed a much quicker, I wanted a cliff note, right? So that's kind of where these expressions kind of came from, that like, oh, well, the expression, right? A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
Yeah.
Like, okay, oh, well, what does that mean? Well, again, it goes back to your risk reward. What kind of entrepreneur do you want to be? How successful do you want to push this? How much leverage do you want to apply as you grow a business? Because they don't have unlimited capital. They don't have unlimited labor. So they have to decide what is the priority, and kind of that discussion. Okay, where do we spend our time next? Again, the Pareto principle, 80-20. Well, where do you think you're going to get the most bang for your buck? Another expression.
I'm hearing you talk about this and thinking that maybe there's a difference between a new client and a really developed client, because, and tell me if I'm wrong.
No, it's a progression. It is, and it's never ending.
Well, I mean, in terms of your data too. Like, let's say you have someone who comes in and is tracking things. They might be tracking them while they might not be. Whereas someone you've been working with for a much longer time, you can have established processes to have that data, and maybe even established schedules of when you're sharing that data and how you're sharing that data. So how do you get a customer through that progression to a point where your data's on autopilot? Right.
Well, that's the... I am very transparent with my clients. I tell them, if I'm doing my job right, I will eventually make myself obsolete. And I see that as actually success. So, and it has happened on multiple occasions. They've either, they've reached a point where they say, okay, I've found my equilibrium in the size of my business on the risk reward paradigm. I don't need to continue to grow, and I'm very happy with the status quo. Other clients have continued to grow and grow and grow, and they outgrow me. And then they say, well, we need someone full time, and I'm not that person. I like working with a lot of diverse clients. And that's great too. That's like they've left the nest. They've learned to fly. So another expression, right? So in the beginning, it is this the data. It's teasing things out of their Excel spreadsheets. It's teasing things from their manual paper, antiquated systems, and getting it into a process, getting it something into more efficient. And in the beginning, sometimes there's resistance, especially if they have staff. Sometimes they're established staff, and they're like, whoa, this is going to be different. And if I jump into a time-saving thing, there's almost a little bit of fear and trepidation there. But that doesn't last long, because then I give them other things to do, and then they say, oh, okay. But then they're also doing things that they're feeling much more confident about, because while the Excel spreadsheet they've been using for years, they never had any check and balance on the spreadsheet. That's the difficult part about a spreadsheet. There's no way to really check to make sure the data is correct. In a system, if it's designed correctly, we can reconcile that. We can find that. So they feel much better about like, oh, great, I can do my data entry and then know that somebody else is going to tell me that's okay. Whereas instead of with a spreadsheet, they're doing data entry and they're just very paranoid about doing something wrong because it'll go unnoticed for indefinite.
So depending on the processes or operations you have and the systems through which that information is collected, you can worry less about whether or not the data itself is right and worry more about how you are examining the data.
And once we get to the next point, it's going to be, okay, let's analyze this. And that's where I continue to stay relevant and say, okay, how can we analyze this? What's next? Is it service offerings? Is it real estate? Is it property? Is it insurance? What do you want to do? There's lots of things that you can do. And my job is not just to say, I start off with systems, of course, because I'm a big believer of systems, but I also have to play the role of devil's advocate and say, listen, if you ask other people, other professionals, they're going to give you different answers. You're a business. If you ask your insurance person, they're going to say, well, you have risk here. You need more insurance. If you're going to ask a lawyer, they're going to say, well, you have risk. You need more entities. If you ask a banker, they're going to say, oh, put it in a CD. If you ask an investment person, they're going to say, oh, it's it's stocks and bonds. If you ask an inventory person, it's more inventory. So where can we use the data that we've designed and processed to really get into, okay, how do we, now let's talk about strategy.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. You're flying blind without good data.
Yeah.
And good data, to me too, again, like I said, helps you check your emotions at the door, which I feel like makes it easier to take a leap when there might be a risk to take. The longer you're tracking data, the more you can spot trends and see behaviors that were unnoticed, even though you might have been the one behaving.
Yeah. No, I live very vicariously through my clients because they are entrepreneurs that take risks. And I really empathize with the risks that they're taking. And there's so many risks out there, the macroeconomic risk, competition, products, there's that they can't control.
Yes.
So by starting off with what they can control, which is their own house, their own information, their own data, at least then they'll have the information to make as educated of a choice, as educated of a decision as possible. So that when they say, well, okay, I know this is going to be a risk. I've quantified the risk the best I can, but yeah, let's order that extra, bunch of product from China that may take 6 or 8 weeks on a container to get here because I don't want to restock. Or, okay, no, I'm willing to go just in time if I need to and run the risk of being out of stock. Or if you're a builder, I'll take this big project on, even though I don't know what's behind the old sheetrock or anything like that.
Oh, risk.
Right. So they just got to quantify it. Like, yes. Okay, here, how can we, let's measure it.
Yeah. Now, do you do this differently for business and individual clients? I mean, the data points are going to be different.
The data points are different. The process is the same, and the process is the same. So if you're an individual and you're a household, like everyone who's watching is, yes, they'll have to understand. I mean, if it's someone that has credit card debt, that's an easy one to go, right? Okay, let's get rid of that. That's the easiest thing. That is not typically my client. It's more of like, okay, well, we're quite successful. We have second homes. We have, cars, lease. It's more of a discussion of, what do we do next with a surplus capital? Yeah. And again, I'm not an RIA. I'm not a financial planner. I don't have a crystal ball. So I'm not here to give stocks or bonds or insurance or any of that advice. My advice is simply to say, well, if you ask this person, they probably will tell you that. If you ask this person, they'll probably tell you that. And I'll even find I'll find articles. I'll even say, like, if you ask this person this is what they'll say, because here's the article that they wrote, and here's this article that they wrote, and here's, so I'll actually provide all of the backup and the support of what they may or may not say. Yeah. And then they can decide whether or not they want to pay that person to actually give them that advice directly.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting.
It's been great. Thank you.